You wouldn't think there was a big storm coming, would you?
The storm is coming.
What did he just say?
He said there's a storm coming.
At the heart of the storm is a source of evil that will change their lives forever.
I don't understand why you chose me.
You want to change the world, son. So do I. People want to change the world, don't know how to begin.
Let's start with a smile. Be honest.
It's love! The secret ingredient is love!
Okay, just calm down.
What the hell are we doing here, Harry?
All you do is give me answers. Just give me the right answer.
Tell the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
I can't promise I'll try, but I'll try to try.
We can figure this out, right? We can figure this out, right?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Worship in the Storm with myself, Emmanuel Kingman, and my co-host, Andy Rouse. What's up, Andy? How are you?
What's up, homie? How's it going, everybody?
Oh, I think that everyone's doing excellent. It's a Friday night. Mimi's here as well. Hello, Mimi.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight?
I am well.
A little feisty earlier.
Always feisty.
Yeah, we had some cake tonight, so,
Yes,
we're like children.
Oh,
We got that
Yeah.
little bit of that spirit stuck in us from the children, which is,
hell
it's
Yeah.
not a bad thing.
Oh, dude, we had it this past weekend at my son's birthday party. I mean, he's got an October birthday. So does my wife. We're all obsessed with Halloween. So we had a costume Halloween party for him. And
Oh,
yeah, we had a
nice.
bunch of kids on cake,
On cake.
going crazy. It was awesome. It was
Yeah,
really
we
good.
were at a birthday party too, and then Sunday is another birthday party. They're siblings as well.
Just a little
wow.
reminder to just go crazy and do what you want to do. Eat some cake, blow out somebody else's candles, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these kids, they take 3 bites, they just scream, they get down, they run.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this one, she looked like she was 6 lines deep in New York City in the 70s, like she was
She had
zooming
a
around.
little trunk or treat at school, and then she came home and had cake
Yeah.
and
Oh,
candy.
man.
Oh,
Blinded by the light.
oh yeah. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
So what's been going on this week, Andy? I mean, you have had some great bangers drop this week.
Oh, thanks, man. So did you.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, actually, these were some of my 2 favorite episodes, actually, Tuesday and Thursday's episodes. And yours, I mean, with the box saga, you and Dananaki, that was a really good one. It was an introduction for me. Well, I mean, I have, a little tiny bit, but that was a nice full introduction, a little bit from the beginning to now. It was, he did a nice job presenting it. So, I was really blown away.
Dan does a great job with a lot of this stuff. But yeah, he's got Box Saga in his head. He's had it in his head for a lot longer than I've had it in my head. And so it's not like a conspiracy theory where it's like, yo, here's the facts, boom, boom, boom. Isn't that crazy? It's this whole like system that you kind of have to learn before you have that aha moment and go, whoa, this is way too coincidental. Like that whole thing. It takes a while to get there with Box Saga. And you got to get past a lot of squirrely weird shit too, that a lot of people immediately turn off from. So it's a really deep topic, but that's what Roots of Creation is going to be for. And we're going to be having on that podcast for guests the foremost people in the world that understand Box Saga. We're talking the primary sources that came right from Eeyore Bach.
And when do you guys start that?
We start 11/11.
Oh, boom. Is that the first day it comes out?
That's the first day it comes out.
Okay.
The first episode's just the 3 of us kind of setting the stage and talking about, we go through all the claims of the Box Saga.
Okay.
And that, even just going through the claims themselves from the horse's mouth, almost does nothing. It's so vague. It's like, okay, well, those are ridiculous claims. You have to read so much and listen so much. And so it's going to be us quite as, I think it's going to be more serious than it's going to be entertainment, to be honest. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
okay,
a
though.
learning
I think
process.
it's
It's excellent stuff to learn.
it's really cool. And we're not suggesting that, or well, maybe we are personally in some ways, but I think it's a great tool, and we don't know what it all means yet. But
Right.
what it implies so far is just really intense and stuff
Yeah.
you can't get around. And Dan's got the other side of it where he is so
Yeah, I want to
deep
have to
into
talk to him
history.
on my
Yeah,
podcast
I
about
think
it. Yeah.
you guys would, I've told him too that you guys would have an excellent conversation. So
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like he's been studying the Bible and he studied other
Big
ancient
time.
myths. I haven't checked out their podcast. I know that we follow each other on Instagram, but I haven't checked out his podcast yet. But yeah, I definitely want to talk to him about it. He put it in a really cool way. And actually, this week I got a lot of psychic information on the creation stories. If I can give you a little breakdown of something that came through me earlier today. So we have all these different creation myths all over the world, right? The different ones, they're all very similar but still different. Okay, so what I got today was that before the earth was the earth. Okay, let's take it back to creation was on a much higher scale, and we are like the later creation, if you will. So there was God, the God of everything, created different what we might call angels, or some of them may be called gods. And so these creator gods then were creating realms all over the place. They were making their own little worlds. Then they came to Earth, and it was kind of like realm where everybody kind of threw in for a playground type of thing. So, and I got last week that there was every planet that came down, there was between 1,500 and 27,000 different souls or beings that we would know. And that's why some seem like NPCs. It kind of seems like a unity mind. It's because they're being controlled by, whatever else is much larger that can't be in the physical realm. So it's very much being controlled in the spiritual. So, okay, these gods all created their own little sections. So you had like Hindus here, you had Native Americans here, you had, Europeans here, you had Africans here, all over the entire earth. Everyone had their own creator gods. So then what happened was God, the creator of those creator gods, came and created his own creation called Adam and Eve. And he put his creation here and told his creation, go multiply with everything else, because he wanted his Holy Spirit in everything so that there were no more NPCs, so that everything wasn't being controlled by the creator God, because God wanted everyone down here to understand that their gods were keeping them down, that they didn't need to be doing what they were doing. They didn't need to live a full life of suffering. They could do what Jesus did, was live a life of suffering to a point, and then you transmute it. And the transmutation of Jesus's process is the perfection. It is going from, we don't know exactly what it was from 13 to 29 that wasn't talked about, but he was obviously someone who came up and was very intelligent up until 12, and then he disappears in the Bible. But then it's his transformation of perfection, of doing God's will, that changes everything. Then he dies on the cross. And so when we look at this, we have to realize that all of creation was created outside of creation. But creation itself has to go through an evolution. So what I'm about to say here, you have to imagine there's two different things happening at once, that the creator was always this, but before Jesus did his thing, it wasn't Jesus. But once he did his thing, it turned into Jesus, but it was always Jesus. It just had to actually happen in order for that to happen. So that's how Jesus
sounded like a word salad, but it literally, I followed the whole thing.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you followed it, because
I did.
It's tough to understand that it's like two different things, like one outside of it and one inside of it. So once the inside one changed, the outside one changed. And it turns out that it was Jesus Christ was the creator of even all the fallen angels and all the other gods, but they're not any different. The colors don't matter. He created everybody differently on purpose so that everyone was different. He didn't want everybody the same. He wanted everyone to be different, but he also didn't want his sons running amok like they did. So what happened? The fallen angels end up coming down here 6 generations into God's creation because they realize, oh shit, God's creation's more powerful than our creations, and it's actually changing our people. We need to actually go down there and physically incarnate, and we need to reproduce with our own creations. So that's what started happening. They came down here and they started reproducing and living amongst their creation.
If they needed to multiply.
Yeah, so God wanted Adam and Eve. Yeah,
right.
And God wanted Adam and Eve to compete because he knew the angels would then pervert everything to try to pervert God's line. But God was like, yes, I want you to do that so that I can then wake up all their spirit at once. And this is the time that now we are all Israelites. We are all have the Holy Spirit in us. Every person on earth, however many there are, maybe not every human. There may be some things that look like humans that are walking around these days, but all the humans are Israelites, and we are all have God's Spirit in them. And once I got that information today, I was like, wow, mind blown.
It's crazy that thing I told you about, that 11-minute video that I was telling you about, kind of matches up with certain thing, or at least it it pinged off a bunch of parts of that video.
You're the fourth.
I don't want to get into it yet, but
You're the fourth person this week that told me something that I said that I had to download about matched up with something they have seen before. Literally the fourth person in 1 week.
Have you also noticed an increase in it's an exponential, it's speeding up when it comes to the synchronicities? Because and I say it a lot, I run into synchronicities specifically every time I've met a new podcaster. It's when we
I think we're just more aware. I think we just gain more awareness. And, like you used to say, you think of a certain car, you end up seeing that car all the time. So as you talk with new people, then you start seeing what those people were talking about.
Well, I'll tell you what someone told me was that, say you take a road trip, right? You go out to California, and then you're driving home. And the closer you get to home, the more you recognize, you start to realize your highway, and then you get closer to your home, and maybe you see like an exit you've always seen your entire life. And then you get off the exit and you're back on the very familiar roads. So we're, like Ram Dass always said, we're being walked home. So
we're all just walking each other home. That's
right.
My favorite line that he's ever said.
Exactly. I know it was. And, that's why this one goes right along with it. When we're going home, we start to recognize more. So that's what synchronicities are.
So perfect, dude. Yeah. Oh, it matches up with the Beatles song too. Once There Was a Way. Well, no, not really, but never mind.
I'm sure it matches some Beatles song.
Of course, definitely. Of course. Yeah, dude. So there's a lot to unpack in what you saw and damn.
It's multi-layered. It comes in over days.
It's just I keep seeing red versus blue. I keep seeing the thing that's been happening forever. Even on a literary level, we see it. They talk about how it's like two factions vying for power, and a light and dark side, basically. This is permeated throughout all of our culture.
Yeah.
Purple is illusion.
And then there's actually more to it.
Right, but that's the blue and the red mixing together.
Yeah, the purple, the illusion.
To make the purple. Yeah.
True, and there's only this conflict here in 3 dimensions, in this time, in time and space. Mm-hmm. Outside of time and space, there is no conflict. Everything is just happening. So it's like, it's only here that division exists, and that makes sense anyway. That flows. So of course, the two illusory opposites are gonna come together and show its true face as purple as to be the illusion. Yeah. So it does work.
I forgot about this part. This is the last piece that came in today. So this, if you think your mind's blown already, just wait what's about to happen. Okay, so
wait, there's more.
Yes.
Drop it. What you got?
So Okay, Jesus is resurrected into the spirit when he dies, right? And all consciousness takes the form of Jesus and in his honor and becomes Jesus, the creator. You know, it all happens all at once. But also what happens is there is necromancy, bringing back the dead, performed on the body of Yeshua ben Joseph, or Yosef. I don't know how to exactly say it, but it's necromancy performed on him by Pontius Pilate. And he raises the dead, but it's not actually the same spirit as Jesus. It's something pretending to be Jesus. So he goes around and populates and starts having sex with women all over the world, goes to France with Mary Magdalene, but is also spreading false knowledge. But what this does is this puts the seed of the creator all throughout the world, so that the sons of God who defied God could then be born into human bodies, which we are doing now, so that we could come to the realization that it was us turning away from God that got this place into the mess that it's in. And that's the story of the fallen angels.
Dude,
The combining of the serpent seed, the serpent seed and God's spirit, it's the two combining. That is what we are.
It's the staff of what is it? Asclepius or Asclepius? I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about. The snake,
Caduceus.
Is it the Caduceus?
Yeah, with the snake wrapped around the cross, or I keep saying snakes around. Yeah, the staff
of Asclepius. Staff of Asclepius.
Oh, okay.
So the staff, that's and it at the top there's wings, because it's the eagle and serpent, but they are not separate opposing forces, they are one.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're cutting off the heads of our snakes, and we are combining the energy of the snake with the knowledge of the eagle.
Beautifully said, man. Yeah,
that's what we are. And it's wild how it works out that way, but that's what it is.
So I want to touch on something you said there about, like, when we turned away from God is what all this happened. Now, all things being as above, so below, in my eyes, I see that statement right there, and it's like a Russian doll throughout every level of reality to me, where you can be talking about the creator and the population turning away from God. You can also talk about that metaphorically as turning away from holy things and being holy, and yes, away from inner self, and distractions abound, right? So where was I going? So turning away from God. When I went into my first psilocybin trip when I was much, much younger, the most intense realization was, it wasn't necessarily, I didn't see Jesus, I didn't see personal God, but I think that's designed too. I think we see what we want to see. It's part of our mind. We're only seeing what we remember anyway. What I experienced was a wisdom that I had turned away from something, God, creation itself, love, eternity, a memory that I had forgotten for all my life, something like that, a memory that I didn't know I had, a life, an existence that I forgot about, that I had tucked away, and that I had turned away. And so at that point, I made a promise to myself, because that's how I took it in that moment. It was like I was talking to my inner child, or my higher self, or God, or I was accepting at that moment of any description. And forevermore, I still am, as we discussed last week or 2 weeks ago. So that being said, I told myself that I would absolutely never, ever forget him ever again, or it, or whatever it was.
Right.
And from that moment, I never really have, but all the evidence that I could recall in that trip that proved to my gross physical ego that this was legit and I couldn't deny it. I can't conjure any of those examples. The ego has suppressed all of them. So I still have to I don't wonder. I know I have this gnosis, but there's still, I can feel my ego literally trying to make me still guess. Like, yeah, but what if it's not? What if it's not? What if it's not? What if it's not? What if
you want to know something?
What is it directing you away from by doing that? By saying what is it? What is
confusing
it? What is
them.
it? It's just confusing you.
It's taking me away from my confidence in
right. Push that away. What's behind it?
That.
Yeah. So what? You know what?
Yep, that's exactly what they did. They did their job then. All those questions.
You're familiar with Thoth. You're familiar with Thoth, right?
Yes.
Okay, so one time I heard somebody say Thoth represents thought, and
yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah, and so before I heard this concept, I was told not to trust Thoth. Don't trust Thoth. I think it was said, however it's pronounced.
Thought.
Non-trust.
Yeah, thought. Okay, yeah. So
or taught.
Yeah, and I was told not to trust that. And because what it is, it's our logical mind that wants to deny us because it doesn't exist any longer. Period. If our mind takes over, mind over matter.
It's a dialogue that creates the maze from The Shining in your head.
I mean, the purest definition of mind control is your mind control. It is just, that's what it does.
Yeah, mind control.
It has control all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think I said it last time, or I've said it on other podcasts, how one of my trips kind of showed me that I had been running a conspiracy on myself my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's still the same thing. I said it differently this time. Like, I turned away from God, creation, everything.
You don't need MK Ultra. You're still going to program yourself.
It's a battle. That's why Christians always say born sinners, because our body is born out of sin. So that's what its natural process is.
Yeah.
While the spirit is born out of love, and that's what its natural process is. And the spirit has the opportunity to make the body conform to it, which is the woman obeying the man. That is pretty much the entirety of it, is just making your physical body obey your spirit for each individual person. It's not really that, Mimi has to obey me. I'm not in charge of her.
No, it has to do with yourself.
Right.
The feminine and the masculine in yourself only.
Right. And it's interesting because, and nothing against any trans person at all. I'm totally accepting, live however the hell you want to live. But just by the definitions themselves and what it means in these ancient systems, what do the elites do, right? What do the big bad guys do? They invert everything, right? Mm-hmm. They turn everything on its head. Mm-hmm. Well, what have they done with this beautiful union of masculine and feminine that is a cognitive, spiritual concept? They've put it into gross physical reality. Right. They've brought it out. Isn't that interesting? Nothing wrong. I'm not saying anything negative about it.
Right.
I'm saying what they have put on it.
Right. And
but
it actually it was born
out
out of worship for androgynous angels and service to them. I had Ed Dodge on. He was telling us about this. That's what patriarchy was born out of, because it was the worship became very perverted, what was going on and what was happening. And like you were saying, this isn't against anybody and choosing to do
people.
Whatever.
We're always against them that are trying to make us
and
sound like we're against people.
Right. And what it actually means in a higher sense of what's happening there, and there's just so much people have been messed with and experimented on in so many different ways, and it's so open and blatant. I saw this one woman today from the European Parliament, I believe. She was saying no government in history has ever done the will of the people. If your government is telling you to do something, question it. If they're not doing something, question it. She goes, there's no way you can ever make me do something and won't tell me the side effects and the risks and have an accurate description of what's going on.
In the name of freedom, she said. I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, it was-
She's like, I'm already free. I don't need this.
And she was
to
standing.
be free.
So there was three
Yeah.
people up there at 3 different booths, and maybe they were running for. I'm not sure what it was. It was just a clip, but the other 2 people looked horrified, looking at it. Like,
looking all
did you
around.
just tell them the truth?
Did you just stand in your true honor?
Yeah, yeah.
It's so rare, but it's not. I'm used to saying that. It's not rare anymore, man. This shit's spreading, and I think it's inevitable that it's all coming to fruition. And this doesn't have to be any big. The end is nigh. It's no, the beginning is nigh. You know, that's what's happening. That's how I'm taking it anyway. Can I talk a little bit about this video clip I saw?
Get into it.
Okay, so it's 2 months old. So maybe it's old news to everybody. I don't know. But it's supposedly this ex-military intelligence guy. Who knows? Maybe it's all fake. But you know, when you listen to someone's voice and they're not selling anything, you know what I mean? And they've been coaxed into or asked to talk sort of situation. And he goes on for 11 minutes in this nervous, nerdy voice, talking about his involvement with supposedly Project Looking Glass.
Okay.
And I never, ever gave really any deeper look into Project Looking Glass. I'll be honest about it. Because the whole time thing,
You've never looked into the yellow cube?
No, actually, I've never heard of the yellow cube.
Oh man, I got a story for you. The yellow cube, I'll just say briefly, but the yellow cube goes with Project Looking Glass. That the day that I learned of it, I had a dream, and in my dream, I saw that there was an arrow, a cloud arrow, pointing to exactly where I was on the earth. You know, like there was a whole earth, and it was round, but there was a whole earth. And there was a big old arrow, and it was pointing there, and it was like blinking, but it was cloud colors. And then I woke up, and it was completely foggy outside. But right before that, I was holding a cube in my hand, but it was gray like the clouds, and it was swirling. And then I realized that I was holding the earth in my hand. The earth was being projected from this cube, and there was an arrow on it pointing to where exactly I was on the earth.
It's like a cell phone.
It was a dream I woke up from the night after learning about it. Yeah, super.
It is like
weird.
a cell phone.
Creepy.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting you though.
No, that's okay. Just remind me where the hell I was.
You should check all
video clip.
You should check out
Carrie
Cassidy with Project Camelot. She
yes, I do need to check her unless it's where I saw this video. She may have posted it.
Could be that it is a nerdy guy, but this is like 10 years old. What I'm talking about.
So this, at least, the video,
or maybe
clips,
2012.
Yes, that's literally what I'm talking about too, because he was talking about 2012 in the past. He didn't. Maybe this was just a clip that I saw of a larger piece, because this person is talking.
Was he wearing a yellow suit?
Unfortunately, it was just mountains.
Okay. Oh yeah. This is it though. I seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is that
all
one.
right,
Yeah.
so we can talk about this.
This is that video.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can watch
for the listeners that have no
interview.
fucking clue what we're talking about right now, and the viewers, it's this video of this military guy talking about Project Looking Glass and his involvement, and he's basically going over how the elites of the world found out that beyond 2012 things got fuzzy, but the conclusions that they came from, all the information they gathered, all of the information was pointing to that we were heading towards a bottleneck where all possible futures are going to collapse into one. And some characteristic of this bottleneck was that all will be revealed. He called it the awakening process. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't say it in any sort of zealous or salesman, very Gaia kind of way. None of that. It was
in 2012 or 2011, maybe, actually. Something like
that. Yeah. But what he's talking about, I love his metaphor. He says it's two chess masters. Mm-hmm. And the one guy looks down and sees that in 7 moves, he's in checkmate. Mm-hmm. And he looks up and he knows that his opponent also knows this too. And at this point, all he can do is prolong the game because the game is already lost.
Mhm.
And that gave me chills, man. And maybe I'm giving into something provocative, you know, that's part of my mind. Maybe that's the same part of my mind. It's like, yeah, but what if it's not true, bro? What if none of it's real, man?
That's its job. And
I
that's why you
know.
don't need TV. You don't need anything but yourself to put yourself in a hole.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think them is us.
It is absolutely. I use the term because it's so easy.
Right. It's easy to blame
Unfortunately,
somebody else.
It's so weird. Like we use their technology, right? Even though it's helping us, but it's heading towards something terrible, right? And like we can't get around it. We call it them, even though it's us. It's just
Well, I don't
our
think
language.
it is us actually. So
In part,
what-
it is.
we have done this to ourselves, but I think because I've been getting a lot that our computers, TV screens, and cell phones
Add to it.
are
for sure.
coming. They're letting in other dimensions. It's literally an interdimensional device. We are like, I'm looking at you through this screen, but it's not you that I'm actually looking at. It's a projection of you, just like you are looking at a projection of me. It's not real. We are traveling interdimensionally through hyperspace, the same hyperspace you go to when you do psychedelics. You run into the machine elves, the demons that are architects that create this world for us. They somehow leaked into this place and started fucking with everything. So I don't, but they can't actually do anything to us, but they can inhabit bodies in different ways, and they can trick us into hurting ourselves and each other.
I definitely think that there are people
They're
and
parasites
things
that got into our
actually
brain, essentially.
intensify
You had a
the
great
mind
episode
control.
that I listened to today about that. Sorry.
With Clint Richardson.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mimi. We'll talk about that.
No, it's
afterwards.
okay. Go ahead.
Well,
That was all I was gonna say. That's it.
I haven't dug into it too deep yet, but yeah, he did send me some links like he said he was going to in the show.
Oh, I've been taking Paracel. I did a 10-day thing: wormwood, black walnut, garlic, and clove. Maybe a couple other things, all natural stuff over the counter to get the parasites out of me. Mimi did it. I know some other people that have been doing it, and man, it is life changing.
Dude, I'll do it. Hell yeah, man. That sounds great.
Yeah, it is. Like, Mimi, what'd you think?
Oh, it's nothing. It's 2 pills 3 times.
It's nothing.
A
I
day.
meant what it did for you.
I mean,
I
I
will
don't
tell
see as big
you-
of a difference as he
Yeah,
does.
she doesn't
but-
because she doesn't see herself. So,
Well,
you know,
right.
this is just how humans operate. We don't notice the little changes in ourselves, but others, when they're paying
Our
attention, they can
partners,
see it.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. She had a transformational
have more
meditation the
opinions.
first night. Yeah, I was able to unlock her Kundalini the first night, and then she cut the head off of it and plugged
That's
it in.
right.
Yeah.
Dude, that's why. So I think I need to get like better at meditation before I go through that process with you. Because like now you think it's like a beginner's thing too?
I'm beginner meditator. I get in trouble for not meditating as often
She
as
just
I should.
she knows the instructions well because she's heard me say it so many different times and what I do. So she knew the process, and I was just there like watching her. I pulled the mirror away so she could do it. She just didn't know it was there.
You just happened to come in when I was meditating, and then you sat with me. That's
Right. Yeah, that is what happened. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, Clint Richardson and I were talking about this and briefly covered that parasitic idea. And a lot of people out there always use the parasite class, the parasitic world controllers. Like,
Yeah, it's so true.
Always made sense. It makes so much sense because all the characteristics of a parasite you can attribute to, and yeah, let's stop. We don't have to say them, but this mentality perhaps that spreads like a fucking virus.
It's a bug
through
that gets in your
humanity.
mind.
Yeah. And like you said, maybe it isn't just us, because there does always seem to be some sort of nugget of anecdotal evidence for an outside influence in every single culture. And it's weird because if we're coming to a bottleneck where all these possible realities could exist simultaneously, that might be the only thing that makes sense in my head so far, because I see so many lines of thought in our community at large and some of them don't agree with one another, yet they follow all the way through and they work. You know how A friend of mine said spiritual principles are never at odds. And I see that. I think that's a good way to recognize someone that gets it, if you get it, because you recognize the same language, the same symbolism in the language. We're all kind of using metaphor more, and it's just this recognizable thing, I guess. And so like the two very different perspectives in the, say, alternative view community seem to follow threads, and you can seemingly trust where they go all the way through. And yet they don't line up with one another sometimes. Like what you have shown me since we've begun talking is a side or an aspect of Christianity, or at least the gnosis and the spiritual teachings behind Christianity at its roots, that I was aware of to a certain degree, but not to what you've given me the rest of the picture.
And I didn't learn it from Christianity either. You know, I learned it from psychic downloads, which is very strange.
The devil work, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's just I have a much more full picture of it, it seems now, in terms of like how that makes sense to bottleneck everything, because otherwise it seemed like an explosion if these ideas couldn't match up at some point. You know, like this flat earth shit, like some of it I cannot get an answer out of anyone.
Yeah.
I either get mockery from people that think they know way better than this, and they absolutely can't descend to the level of even questioning it. I get no answers, absolutely not. And then even from our peers who don't believe it, I can't really get an answer to why do we see so damn far. That's one right there. Like, so, but I don't necessarily believe flat earth. There's a lot of shit that would say, so it's like, well, where do those two converge? How do they
here
converge,
they go.
You know?
Here you go. So I had on Ryan Zem, episode 52. It's called Looking Through the Prism and Antarctica. What?
Right here.
I have something
on me. I
me.
listened to that episode.
I
think I listened to that one.
Okay, so Ryan Zem, he came up with the idea that there's this thing called atmospheric refraction. So when we look up in the sky, things just go, instead of being straight across, we see them bend, like a rainbow. It just bends, and we also know that light bends. So. And this brings in another flat earth thing, is that snipers, they're not accounting for the curvature of the earth, they're accounting for the curvature of light bending, because light bends. We know this, the further you get away, it's literally bending down towards you. So when you get far enough away from something, it ends up being in a circle. It ends up being a full circle whenever you're far enough away, even when you're looking at it with your own two eyes. And there's not a name for it. See, when you look from the earth up into the sky, it's called atmospheric refraction. But they tell us that there's no quote unquote atmospheric refraction when you're up in the sky looking down. So what he calls it is horizontal refraction. And he is this physics, self-taught physicist, basically. You know, he doesn't have a degree or anything, but so he did this mathematical equation, sent it to a physicist in Germany and in Brazil. And the Brazilian physicist, so they were students working alongside professors, but obviously, you know, highly trained gentlemen. And the Brazilian guy turned into a flat earther on that basis alone, because he said everything else matched up. That him realizing that if you are above the earth, the pictures would be round no matter what style camera you may use. And the German guy was, you know, he didn't turn flat earther, but then he started, you know, having questions about everything. You're on mute.
Of course I am. Dude, that's weird, man. That's something I have not heard, but you know, you often hear people say like, it's both, man. It's whatever you want it to be from the lens of your perception. I'm like, that's too loose.
So we live
in a beautiful system here that's perfect.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I've seen it both ways. I've seen it multiple ways. And when we are on a dimensional scale, we can only see the dimensions that we can see. If you start to study quantum physics a bit, they will show you that a two-dimensional object cannot see a three-dimensional object. So a three-dimensional object cannot see a four-dimensional object, so on and so forth. So I have seen, which I talked about with Sam Tripoli on Zero, which you're going to go on there. That's going to be awesome. So
I'm doing that after this.
Yes. So I got to talk to him, and I told him how one time in my meditation I saw that the continents of the earth were Jesus's face. They made up his face, because I saw that on a scale that it came apart, it broke apart and got smaller and smaller. The coral reef is like our pores, because something's so large, which is super hard to comprehend. But I also see that each continent could have been its own person and being, and we have 7 main transgressors, the 7 wandering planets, the 7 continents. I wonder if they're all somehow the same thing on a smaller and smaller scale. The Russian doll, as
Dude, there's
we were
also
talking.
the seven adepts.
Okay, I don't even know the 7 adepts.
Let me look that up, because I don't know much. Yeah.
So what my main conclusion is for the Earth is that we are inside of a sphere, that there's some kind of sphere containing us in a vast ocean, and inside of the sphere is flat land and water, and it goes straight across. What are you making a face for?
Like Sandy Squirrel.
Well,
this is what I was thinking about earlier today.
Yeah,
like Sandy Squirrel lives in that little thing
full
underneath
ball.
the sea, but she's like,
Okay, so instead of just being the dome on top, it's like a full ball.
It's like a dome. Okay.
Yeah, like Sandy Squirrel. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
actually.
like you're in a bubble, like in the ocean, like we're in the sea.
Yeah, exactly. We're in the sea.
I had that thought that we're in the
And
water.
I actually think that the NASA helmets that they have is a mockery of the shape of the Earth, because it is actually Jesus was wearing this helmet, when all the continents are making up his face, he's wearing the spacesuit type of deal.
Whoa. Holy shit. I'm going to have to find that episode of Zero.
And yeah, number 96. They're mocking us with it. Yeah, it was amazing. But I also see that it's also could be, when Enoch describes it in my Book of Enoch series, he describes the all-seeing eye, the way it's the pyramid with the head chopped off and the triangle right at the top over it. It's because that's just the way he's describing. He's describing 4 corners of the earth, and then there's a firmament that's going up, and then there's an abyss that is leaking in, and then above the abyss is God, the most high God. And on the dollar bill, it's a triangle in a circle. And if you're familiar with geometry, when they do the triangle in a circle that's in a square that's in a triangle, that's it's repeating itself over and over. This is the type of fractal nature that we're in, so it has to eventually work on that, and what it would be just depends on what dimension that you're looking at it from. So while we're standing on it, we're inside of a ball. It's literally a ball filled with dirt and water, and we're inside of it, and we're like half in the middle somewhere. That's what I say.
And then you get the possibility of the toroidal perspective.
Yeah, I know. You want to throw everything into the quantum physics, into dimensional changes and quantum physics. Now we're getting into like actual science.
I know.
Whatever you want it to be.
Like the science that actually uses the scientific method and everything. How about that?
Yeah.
I feel like we've abandoned that on a grander scale, but it needs to be held on to desperately.
Well,
the scientific method needs to be protected.
I think I might just have the best segue ever.
I think we just need to learn to trust the science.
Trust the science.
The science is settled.
The science is settled. There's a lot of evidence, and yet people don't believe it.
But let's be clear, the debate in the scientific community is settled.
So,
the cult has decided.
Yes, trust the science. And it was surprisingly difficult to find these clips that weren't talking about climate. all of these we're talking about climate. Maybe one of them was
that's
about
the rabbit
something
hole
else.
we need to go down next. I guess.
Well, yeah, so that was funny. All right, so let me pull up. I'm going to share my screen here because I have some articles that we are going to go over just a bit. You know, we're going to do some science.
Some science?
We're going to do some science. So cigarettes were once physician tested and approved. So this is our new segment called Trust the Science because, you know, YouTube algorithm, we trust the science, you know, all that good stuff. So here, I'm
should
just
we call it Trust the Scientism?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, there you
I don't
go.
know,
Trust the
either way.
Scientism. So I'm just going to read off a little bit of this, and this is about cigarettes and how we came to know cigarettes as being healthy for you at some point in history. So here you go. This was an article from 2009. Cigarettes were once physician tested and approved. From the 1930s to the 50s, doctors once lit up the pages of cigarette advertisements. So here we go. For a long time, physicians were the authority on health. For a long time, you know, as if it's not the same thing today. Patients trusted in their doctor's education and expertise, for the most part, followed their advice. When health concerns about cigarettes began to receive public attention in the 1930s, tobacco companies took preemptive action. They capitalized on public's trust of physicians in order to quell concerns about the dangers of smoking. Okay, insert what's happening today with they capitalize on the public's trust of physicians in order to quell concerns about the dangers of not taking something. And thus was born the use of physicians in cigarette advertisements.
You can just take the word cigarette right out of there. And thus was born the use of physicians in advertising, marketing, and trickster behavior and misdirection, and deception.
It gets real nutty in here, some of the things that happened. So during the 1920s, Lucky Strike was the dominant cigarette brand. This brand, made by American Tobacco Company, was the first to use the image of a physician in its advertisement, where it said 20,679 physicians say Luckies are less irritating. Its advertisements proclaimed the advertising firm that promoted Lucky Strikes had sent physicians free cartons of the cigarettes and asked them whether Lucky Strikes were less irritating to quote-unquote sensitive and tender throats. The company claimed that its toasting process made its cigarettes a smoother smoke. So nothing too bad yet, you know, just claiming 20,000 plus physicians say something good about them.
You got a prescription of free cigarettes back then.
Oh, they literally give you prescriptions in here. So hold on. So I'm getting there. Okay.
I didn't know that. Okay.
We're trusting the science. Hold on. Okay. We're hit the mid 30s. Lucky Strike had some competition. A new advertising campaign for Philip Morris referred to research conducted by physicians. One ad claimed that after prescribing Philip Morris brand cigarettes to patients with irritated throats, quote unquote, every case of irritation cleared completely or definitely improved by smoking cigarettes. This series of advertisements, along with others referring to quote unquote proof of superiority, made Philip Morris a major cigarette brand for the first time in its history. Okay. So, you know, not too bad. Just telling you, when you get sick, smoke some cigarettes and you'll feel better. So
yeah, real quick.
Go ahead.
Do you know anything about the concept that, like, you know, tobacco itself has some health benefits? I haven't looked into it, but I have heard people talk about that.
The non-nicotine. Is it
the non-nicotine? Okay, I wasn't.
Well, yeah,
I didn't know
it's
that.
all the nicotine that they add in the chemicals, but there is tobacco, I guess, you could have without nicotine in it that wouldn't be so bad for you, because all the ancients smoked a lot, actually.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. So I was just wondering if that's how they're covering for this shit. Like, oh, well, back then there was no additives, so they actually were kind of healthy back then. Yeah, times have changed, you know. Now they're bad for you, so get a digital ID.
Well, that's an interesting take. I didn't think of it that way, but they probably weren't as bad for you. Not that they were healthy or going to help heal your throat of sickness, you know, but
no.
Yeah, they definitely probably were much easier to handle. All right, so then we have some interesting little things right here.
So I know that they didn't first advertise them to women because it was a big deal to not advertise for women until they weren't making enough money, and then they had to come up with a whole campaign just to get women on board.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep,
Yeah.
I heard that too. It was a
Read
whole
that
marketing
a couple
scheme.
weeks ago, but it was this one
Okay.
guy that made this whole marketing scheme to make the woman look, big and bad with the cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
Wasn't
look,
it
they were
around
wearing
the time
white
of World War
coats.
II?
So they're doctors.
Well, it had to be around center. I remember seeing like old timey centerfoldy things with women with cigarettes.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like the empowerment of women during the war.
Yeah, and
Perhaps it
around the
coincided.
women voting and things like that. It was all around that time, I think.
You see how the
Right.
psyop works? It's so well done because you get women fighting for rights that they really shouldn't want, because none of us should want them. We shouldn't want to vote. We shouldn't vote. I'll say it right there. And like, I know this is a total side, but yeah, it drives me nuts when you can see that clear as day. It's like, get them worried about this over here, so they're not even worried about the picture that they're a part of, that they're painting.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, it's the power of advertisements. So, on your screen here, for any audio people only, we have a doctor in a white coat where it says not one single case of throat irritation due to smoking Camels.
Wow, which is like the harshest cigarette there
And,
is.
and then on another page, we have another guy in a white coat smoking a cigarette, and it says more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. So here he says one of the most famous of the campaigns of this era was the quote unquote More Doctors campaign for R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company's Camels brand cigarettes. These ads, which appeared in magazines from time to Ladies' Home Journal, claim that according to a nationwide study, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. These ads pictured doctors in labs sitting back at their desk or speaking with patients. The idea was that if you show a physician being an enthusiastic partaker in smoking, the public gets the notion, with what doctors know, if they choose to smoke this brand, it must be a safer, better brand, or the public thought that smoking itself must be okay. So again, change out smoking with, if doctors are taking this, then it must be okay. Flip side of the coin, physicians were also not immune to the addictions of cigarettes and tobacco products, and tobacco companies knew it. Many physicians still doubted that there was a widespread connection between smoking and disease. Instead, it was believed that only certain individuals' health was affected by smoking. It was thought to be a case-by-case situation, which, that sounds pretty accurate to me, because some people do live to be 100 and something and smoke. We all know someone that lives way past their time and they smoked every day for a long time.
Well, the other part of this that's, that adds up to today is that, the fact that like physicians were also not immune to the addictions of cigarettes and tobacco products, and tobacco companies knew that. So it's like the same thing is happening today, where, and it's again what I said before too, where like the fact that they're advertising Camels specifically, right, and they're less harmful and more doctors are smoking them. It's unbelievable. It's ridiculous that you're arguing for the safety of one brand because all the rest are dangerous, instead of the idea that all of it's dangerous. It's just that perfect little psyop.
Yeah.
Get them worried about this little part of it instead of the whole picture.
Yeah. Just get them to, trust you. That's all. Just get them to trust the science, and we'll hook them. So here we got a couple more advertisements. One says, "Don't smoke is advice. Hard for patients to swallow. May we suggest instead smoke Philip Morris." Test showed 3 out of every 4 cases of smoker's cough cleared on changing to Philip Morris. Why not observe the results for yourself? And then we have another advertisement that's a prescription, as we were talking about earlier, maybe, and it says a good prescription. So here we have, it says, cigarette companies also wanted doctors to smoke their brands. Companies like Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds participated in medical conventions by sponsoring doctors' lounges and giving away free cigarettes in order for them to promote them, they were giving them things. This is called coercion. This is
the word that I like that they use.
okay. So it says, but the most inventive method to influence physicians was R.J. Reynolds' creation of its medical relations division. This division was based out of an R.J. Reynolds advertising firm and focused on promoting Camel cigarettes by finding researchers who could substantiate the medical claims that the company was making in advertisements. Now the company was able to refer to research findings in their advertisements both to consumers and to physicians. So they're just finding people who will okay them and saying that it's okay. All right, so then
They
here
need
we
spokespeople.
Yeah, they definitely need them. So now we're going to get into a little bit more wild stuff. We're almost done with the article here in a moment, but in the late 1940s and early 50s, a transition began to appear in these ads. Advertisements for Camels began to incorporate a try it for yourself approach. Although the ads still pictured physicians proclaiming cigarettes to be less irritating, they also now encourage consumers to test the cigarettes themselves. The test was really fun. Every Camel tasted so good, and I didn't need my doctor's report to know Camels are mild. But it was only a matter of time until science caught up to the advertising. By the mid-1950s, more research was being published that confirmed a link between tobacco products and lung cancer. Growing concerns among the public about the dangers of smoking cigarettes meant the slow disappearance of the physician from cigarette ads. Slowly, the tobacco companies began to band together as they realized that their entire industry was in danger. By 1953, JAMA banned tobacco ads from its pages and from AMA conventions. Other advertisers in the publication disliked having their ads placed by ads for cigarettes. Physicians also began to give up the habit. A study established in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1959 found that the number of physicians in Massachusetts who reported being regular smokers declined from 52% in 1954 to 39% in 1959.
So when was the very beginning? This article talked about the 1920s. So it
Yeah,
took about
started in the
39,
20s.
40 years for them
Yes.
to figure out,
All
like,
right.
oops,
So,
we
yeah.
should have done some research
Right. So
of our own.
Here we go. The proof. On January 11th, 1964, Surgeon General Luther Terry announced the findings of the Surgeon General's Advisory Committee on Smoking and Health. The report, Smoking and Health Report of the Advisory Committee to the Surgeon General of the United States, man, they use
Sounds
words just
official.
to use words, concluded that there was a link between lung cancer and chronic bronchitis and cigarette smoking. In a press conference, Terry said, "It is the judgment of the committee that cigarette smoking contributes substantially to mortality from certain specific diseases and to the overall death rate." By the end of 1965, the tobacco industry was required to put warning labels on its products and advertisements to warn the public of health risks associated with smoking. So I got two more paragraphs here. So after a couple hundred years of tobacco use, tobacco companies would lose several more major battles throughout the next few decades, including the ban on television ads in 1970, when Richard Nixon signed the Public Health Cigarette Smoking Act. In 2005, tobacco companies made a settlement with the National Association of Attorneys General that included an agreement to remove tobacco ads from the school library editions. Took till 2005, 85 years later, of Time, People, Sports Illustrated, and Newsweek. Despite all this, about 45 million Americans still smoke, although the CDC, who trusts them, estimates that tobacco use decreased. And when I said who, I meant the WHO trusts them. Use decreased by almost 1/3 between 1990 and 2007. It is estimated more than 400,000 people still die before their time. I don't believe that, because nobody dies before they're supposed to as a result of tobacco products.
I didn't realize that 85 years, like, I don't think anybody realizes any of that sentence there, that it took 85
And
years.
there was a part, I guess I skipped
85
over in the
years,
beginning here.
one lifetime.
Okay, so I think I skipped one of these. It says, for a long time, physicians were the authority on health. Patients trusted in their doctors' education and expertise, and for the most part followed their advice. No, I read that. One of them, I don't know where it's at, but it says that, of course, they weren't even physicians. They were actors.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, how about that?
I can't believe I
Mimi,
skipped that part,
you
though.
touched on that really important part about how long it took the science to catch up with the
Yeah.
advertising. and people really need to realize the connection to what's going on now and how little
we're
we
at ground
actually
zero
know.
right now
Yeah.
for what we're doing to our bodies, or not me, but other people.
Okay, here it is. It says, although the doctors in these advertisements were always actors and not real physicians, the image of the physician permeated cigarette ads for the next 2.5 decades.
Was, I guess, propaganda was legal then, or no?
Yes, it was.
Well, actually, yeah,
Right back then, because
I think it was the 40s.
Smith-Mundt Act. Yeah, it was way. I think it was the 60s that the Smith.
60s?
Was it that early?
I think it was. I think it was right after World War II.
You might be right. It could have been right after World War II. I can't remember, but I don't know. Yeah, well, maybe we could look into that. But
all right. So
that was pretty informative. I mean, we've all seen the memes about doctors used to recommend cigarettes and everything, but going into the details of it, it's very telling because it sounds very, very similar.
And doctors.
Yeah, it does. And now that leads us to, what happened this week in today's current news. I got some current news things. And so we'll transfer right into a scientific thing where Dr. Fauci's blasted over puppy research claims. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I didn't know they were just claims. I've accidentally ran into video footage at one point, and I had to throw my phone because I like dogs.
No.
Yeah, it was horrible. If anyone wants to know about this, they cut the vocal cords of different dogs, which actually it has a name for it that I read in here. I forget. Here it is. Remove cordectomies.
Why?
So to reduce
barking.
Because they're just
because
annoying you.
Silence them.
Well, because then they cage their heads and put fleas in there, so the fleas would pretty much bite their faces,
and they couldn't cry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is what they were doing. Conducted humanely under anesthesia.
Yeah, sounds perfectly humane.
Yeah. This is to reduce noise, which is just stressful. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to debark dogs in research.
There's people that do this to their own dogs. I've heard of debarking a dog before. Like, there's people that actually go and do this.
Sandflies bites draw blood and can transfer the parasites responsible for leishmaniasis, a neglected tropical disease.
Yeah, of course they have to justify this with saving people. They're always saving so many lives.
Yeah, it's for the children.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because
did I get you into something else too?
Yeah, here's something else for the children from Dr. Fauci.
Oh, no.
Oh, he always has so many nice surprises.
I'm really not doing this on purpose. This is
what happened? Why is this one not coming up?
Coincidence. Actually.
Refresh.
This is CBS News from a 2005. AIDS drugs tested on foster kids. Oh, come on. Now establishing connection. I had this up for hours. Establishing connection. Oh, of course, they have to hit me with more ads. So May 4th, May the 4th be with you, 2005. Before that was
that's
even
when that's when we finally did that cigarette thing too. It took till 2005.
There you go. They were
a busy year.
They tested AZT on orphan kids before they took cigarette advertisements out of children's school books, magazines. That's just where we are. Yeah, so government-funded researchers tested AIDS drugs on hundreds of foster children over the past 2 decades, so this was in the 80s and 90s, often without providing them a basic protection afforded in federal law and required by some states. So this isn't anything to do with COVID or political stuff. This is from 16 years ago, almost 17 now. And it just came out this week because of the dog incident. People started looking into this Dr. Fauci and NIAID and NIH and what are they actually funding? They're doing all of this stuff, and well, let's just see what they've been doing.
Practice ensured that foster children, mostly poor minority, received care from world-class researchers at government expense, slowing their rate of death and extending their lives. Well, how nice of them.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But it also exposed a vulnerable population to the risks of medical research and drugs that were known to have serious side effects in adults and for which the safety for children was unknown. So the research was conducted in at least 7 states: Illinois, Louisiana, Maryland, New York, North Carolina, Colorado, and Texas. Be ashamed of yourselves. And involved more than 4 dozen different studies. So more than 48 studies.
So here's another case of create the disease, create the thing that, takes care of the disease, but test it on unsuspecting victims first.
The foster
so you
children
can kill double the amount of people.
Yeah, there you go. The foster children range from infants to late teens. Several studies that enlisted foster children reported patients suffered side effects such as rashes, vomiting, and sharp drops in infection-fighting blood cells as they tested antiretroviral drugs to suppress AIDS or other medicines to treat secondary infections. In one study, researchers reported a quote-unquote disturbing high death rate among children who took higher doses of a drug. That study was unable to determine a safe and effective dosage.
Jesus.
This is
unreal.
Yeah, and in 1983,
it's not surprising.
In 1983, the government provided special protections for child wards, and this was after that, and so they were supposed to be required to do all these things, and they didn't. However, researchers and foster agencies told AP that foster children in AIDS drug trials often weren't given such advocates, even though research institutions many times promised to do so to gain access to the children. Jesus. Illinois officials believe none of their nearly 200 foster children in AIDS studies got independent monitors. New York City shows less than a third, 142 of the 465 had monitors, even though the city required them. And here, same thing, Memorial Hospital, Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. This shit was just going on crazy. Officials estimate that 5% to 10% of the 13,000 children enrolled in pediatric AIDS studies funded by NIH since the late 1980s were in foster care. So 5 to 10% of these people were experimented on with no understanding of what was happening or any adult supervision. They had nobody to care for them. Some foster children died during studies, but state or city agencies said they could find no records that any deaths were directly caused by experimental treatments.
Of course not.
And this is just the ones they tell us.
It was cherry on top, right? You had pneumonia and lung issues, I'm sure.
Yeah. What do you say to the people out there that read this and they think, well, this is just human error, or it's just a couple bad apples here and there? You can't blame this big global conspiracy.
It could say children, it could say monkeys, it could say dogs, and it would still make me as upset as I am.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, what I would say to somebody is, well, here's the proof. We pulled up 3 articles from different time periods, and these are crazy things.
And there's common denominators.
Absolutely.
Craziness.
Absolutely.
Scientists don't have a heart. So that's a good little segue for Arthur Kaplan, head of medical ethics at the University of Pennsylvania, said advocates should have been appointed for all foster children because researchers felt the pressure of a medical crisis and knew there was a great uncertainty as to how children would react to AIDS medications that were often toxic for adults.
This is people that are just doing their job.
Yeah, this is the guy the head of medical ethics.
They don't fight it because they want their paycheck.
Saying they shouldn't be doing this.
Yep, they don't fight it because they want a paycheck and they just do what they're
That's what
told to do.
Yeah, a lot of this is incentivized. I say it often on the show. A lot of it doesn't, people that don't believe conspiracy theories are, that's getting fewer far between, I hope. But they assume it's all, you think everyone's involved. No, I think they involve as few people as humanly possible.
And they fire the people who won't do it, and they get people who will come. Like if a doctor won't perform on them, they'll move them to a department or whatever, take them off, get somebody else on that will do it. Like the cigarette companies, they would keep finding a doctor until someone said that it would work for them, because that's what they do. That's their job. If they're not doing that, they're not doing their job.
And
it's our job
internally,
to be moral.
Internally, they're like, I would say one part of Bob Lazar's story, for instance, that he gave away the truth, because I don't believe a lot of his stuff, but they always pepper in the truth, and the idea that everything is very compartmentalized. Absolutely, that's exactly how they operate. They can't have everybody knowing the whole piece, the whole thing. They just give little pieces here and there to figure out those individual parts, so they can put the puzzle together themselves behind closed doors.
This is
incentives reminds me, not only of the medical community and the government community, but the celebrity community, the education communities.
They don't all have to, I mean,
all about free swag and free shit.
I'm sorry, I don't think everyone like blocking their they're probably told to do it, maybe because the people telling them to do it know that it's going to fuck with tons of conspiracy theorists and piss tons of people off, but
they have no advocate, so it's much easier
no
to
advocates. It's a lot of these people that we blame for Satanism and shit are most likely just following their coercion, and they've been incentivized all the way up to glamour and everything. Not all of them. I'm just saying we can't say this about everybody, and we don't, for those who think we do.
No, we don't.
Right, we don't name names typically, because we just let the evidence speak for itself. There's no reason.
Well, you'll see that there's main names that are, common denominators, and then there's these, other doctors and other specialists, and they don't name their names because these are the people that are just doing their job, I think.
Well, and then here you go. There's a paragraph in here that says the U.S. Office for Human Research Protections, created to protect research participants after the infamous Tuskegee syphilis studies on black men, is investigating the use of foster children in AIDS research. This is another experiment that was done on people. Tuskegee. It's Tuskegee.
Yes.
Yeah,
horrifying. And when I learned about that as a young person, I'm like, wait, this happened what? This happened in this century? And that's when, another door blew open, because it's and now to see advertisements last year or the beginning of this year or whatever that were like, and guess what? That's right. We're giving the vaccine to the black community first because we care. And I'm just like, holy shit.
Yeah, we're giving it to all the poor and impoverished.
Right. Yeah.
And we're going to give it to the children and the women. And then we're going to give it to your dogs and your cats.
So if anyone wants to read this, you can go on, check out cbsnews.com.
I saw a meme that said something like, you can give a vaccination to every person in the entire world, but you can't send,
Food.
a loaf of bread.
Right. Exactly. So we're getting a little short on time. I hate to do that, but I got to go talk to Sammy, and I do have to do some things beforehand, so I don't want to cut it too close, but I don't want to cut us off like that. So let's do a nice little wrap up here, because this was really cool episode too.
I'd like to I kind of threw that together last minute, the whole science thing, but I
liked it a lot.
That was a lot. I thought you were only gonna have one or two.
Yeah, man, that was great. How we jumped from one thing to another. That was awesome.
Yeah, it worked out that way.
That was a complete coincidence. I did not know. I didn't know what he had pulled up.
God kind of segues things for me, and I just see them seize the moment. So
and dude, that Beagle, the thing about dogs, I've been hearing Fauci and Beagle and the Fauci dog memes. I've seen those for over a year.
Oh, really?
And now granted, I didn't see tons of articles or anything, or tons of podcasts covering it, but that shit, I've heard about that for a long time. So when recently I've been hearing it again more, I just kind of, okay, whatever, because it was old news. It was just, another piece of how bad these people are. it's just funny that it's just seems to, I guess, coming out on a bigger scale now, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
That's funny. Just another thing that was already being talked about, and now it's perhaps in a controlled way being let out.
Yeah.
That's
I
always
don't.
how it goes.
I wonder. Ultimately, I wonder why they're throwing him out. Is it the whole that they're just that maybe someone took over and
Straw
they're
man.
that they're not real anymore. Have you
Well,
seen?
they're irrelevant. So even the most,
Yeah.
think about did you ever see Kevin Costner's Robin Hood?
No, I don't.
Prince of Thieves.
Yeah,
from
yeah, I
back in
have
the
seen that
90s.
one. Yeah, and the Comedy
Yeah,
Central.
don't see the new one. No, that was Men in Tights. That made
Oh,
fun of
okay.
Prince of Thieves. So it probably
Okay.
happened a similar way because it is a parody. But Sheriff of Nottingham kills his favorite cousin, his next of kin, just for fucking something up. No one matters to them. Everyone is I mean, this is always the same behavior you see in all the mob movies that we love so much. And
Right.
and I love Goodfellas and shit. But what it does is it shows you exactly not a group of Italians and how they act. It's showing you the personality of the real mob.
Right.
Because that's exactly how they operate. You know what I mean? And people have told me they call it organized crime, instead of the elites or whatever, because that's really what it is. It's familial crime.
Yeah.
I think it was Exertus that said that.
It's crazy how they just put it in our minds and normalize it so that when we see it happen, I'm used to it.
I knew
it's not
that
really
was
shocking.
coming. I knew that was coming.
Hey, Mimi, what is the name of that cartoon on Netflix that we were watching yesterday? It wasn't very funny.
Shoot.
It was kind of making fun of conspiracy theories.
Yes.
It's called like Into Space or something. I forget. I could be way off.
My homie Mason from Schumann Beings, he was on one of my big witness roundtables that will come out in November. He turned me on to that, and yeah, it's very interesting. I've only seen a little bit of it so far, but it's the same old shtick. It's mocking us while revealing some things and parroting other things.
Well, my question for you is, today's day and age with the president and vice president using sets across the street from the White House.
Inside Job.
Oh, it's called Inside Job is the show. Yes. Okay. It's not very funny at all. And it's not very informative either. It's kind of like a ripoff of Rick and Morty, but not funny.
Mention like every single solitary
in the first 5 minutes.
Everything
is mentioned.
And that's how pop culture does everything that we like. They go, "Oh, is this what you wanted?" Like, yeah, kind of, but it came out sounding like pop punk.
Yeah. So, I just wonder if there is something to the thing of a company doing this, that they are putting on the show that maybe I don't think that maybe they're not allowed in the White House, and that's why they have a set. And so this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, because the cargo ships surrounding the Americas right now, this is an oddity with China having the capability of hiding missiles inside as looking like cargo ships, and
we're troops.
And we have the Mexican border is already run amok. And the Canadian border, that we know that the Chinese were training for winter military there last year. So, and they have an open invitation by Justin Trudeau. And it comes to biblical prophecy when it says that Israel will be surrounded by the enemy, and God will intervene. And when the enemy goes to strike, God will send fire that stops the enemy in its tracks. And, it's kind of seeming that it could be where we are at this very moment in history.
Dude, that feels like something I've heard from like the likes of Freddie Silva and a couple other people in his area about, he showed a crop circle that was like a perfect notation of our solar system, and it was missing Earth, and it also signified like a year, and it was like 2029 or something like that. And I've often heard also that it's like, it's really up to us. You can stop these elites, just like you can go within and stop your ego and get control of your own body. You as a species can get a hold of this planet, but if you don't, that's why the reset happens. Because oh well, it ran its course, and up the bad guys took over. They got the checkmate, so there comes the fire.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the asteroid.
Well, actually,
and maybe we don't have to face it because we're all gonna, wake up to all this before that happens.
Maybe the fire is the CME, the X-class CME that is hitting Earth on Halloween, the Day of the Dead. And it wasn't you that brought forth the theory that possibly that was the cataclysm hit on Halloween, and here we are.
That time period, at least in the harvest season, because that's when the Taurid meteor stream would be passing by, at least that massive deteriorating chunk of it, supposedly. And that Halloween is remembered across the world, whether we know it or not, for the time that we lost everybody, pretty much. It's a really creepy theory, and it's from Randall Carlson, so it's like, he's good with math. The dude's a master builder. He's pretty smart.
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder if X-class solar flare equals X-Men, if that's what creates X-Men on the Day of the Dead, something to that effect. But we're going to let you go here because you got a big night tonight. Tell Sam we said hello.
Absolutely.
And for good luck. Have a good time.
Right. And for everybody on YouTube and all of our audio